Welcome to the Level Up Lab, a show where we discuss fitness, nutrition, and all things wellness. We want to demystify what it takes to be healthy and strong while having fun along the way. Sometimes we'll chat, sometimes we'll have guest experts, and sometimes we will go through rigorous clinical trials that either support or refute generally accepted practices in fitness and nutrition. Tyler and Dan are the founders and owners of Level Up Fitness in Boca Raton, the premier strength training gym in South Florida. We are fierce advocates that building and maintaining lean muscle mass is the key to a long and healthy life. For anyone who wants to be strong, fit, and healthy well into old age, listen to Tyler and Dan lay out the path in a fun and entertaining way. We hope you share and enjoy. Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Hey, what's up, Tyler?
What's up, man? Welcome back to the fourth episode of the Level Up Lab. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dan.
And we, first of all, want to appreciate all you guys that have been following and listening, been subscribing and downloading the podcast. We just found out we've got a couple hundred downloads, I think now. So
hundreds
that's exciting.
now, yeah.
So we appreciate you guys, and that's motivating to us to continue to make these episodes as informative and as educational as possible.
Yeah, and it's actually a lot of fun to get to sit down with you, rap about stuff that you and I talk about a lot, but we don't get a chance to talk to everybody else about. So this is kind of cool to do.
Yeah, exactly. It gives us that opportunity to kind of riff on things that maybe we've been hearing or seeing. Yeah. Which, speaking of which, today's episode is called 5 Whys of Level Up, for lack of a better name. But these are kind of questions that we hear people talk about. People ask us kind of off the cuff, maybe in passing, maybe after a class, and we can kind of talk to them personally about it. But they're very common, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is something we should kind of discuss further.
Yeah, they're always like, why do we do this, right? There's a couple of things. There's a lot of things that we do at Level Up that you maybe you think you know why we do them, maybe you don't. But there's often a purpose behind some of the things that we do or some of the things that we say. There's a lot of whys that we could go into, but we decided to just make 5 of them for today. Yeah. Maybe we'll have a regular series of whys over time, but we decided to kind of, the first 5 that came to mind, right?
Yep. So let's get started with the first one. So our first one that we feel we hear quite a bit is, why do we train by functional movement pattern? Why do we do our split the way we do rather than doing it by a body part?
Right. We do push days, pull days, squats, hinges, right? So we don't do, we don't do upper body, lower body specifically. We don't do back and bi days, right? So yeah, what's the rationale behind that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one is just because you're training functionally, when you're training a movement pattern, you're hitting multiple muscles at once rather than being very specific, what I would call the bro split, where you have like chest and triceps, back and biceps, what's commonly known as. A lot of the time you're very much in that box. And as a trainer, I like to be able to hit the muscle group, 2 to 3 times in a week, because that's what's really going to stimulate good growth. Mm-hmm. So allowing us to do multiple days where, some weeks you'll see maybe 2 push days in there. And it doesn't mean it's always just going to be a full chest or a full shoulder workout, but you're going to be working a combination of those muscles. Some legs might be involved, some core might be involved. So as far as like training, to be more athletic, if anything, like that's why we do movement patterns to start.
And this is what we do when you're outside the gym, right? You're moving your whole body, right? You're not just training, you're not just working one thing. Usually that your day involves a lot of functional movement. That's exactly what we do all day long. Maybe talk a little bit about the complementary nature of doing this. So like a push day and then a pull day. Like why does that work so well when you're doing it that way? Because you can, kind of hit in our parlance, the agonist and antagonist muscles, right? So how can you describe a little bit about that and how it, the member of Level Up can feel that?
Yeah, and that's why we designed the workouts that way, is we want you to be balanced overall. We don't want you to be too much, having too many muscles in one direction or too many in the other, for, lack of a better term.
I think what you're getting at is you want to be able to hit, the front of the body and the back of the body, or the front of a muscle, the back of the muscle, on a successive day. So even if you're burning out, on a, say, push day, you can still hit the other side of those same muscles the next day without compromising the rest of that first muscle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we have the multiple days, is you want to be able to, hit that muscle, several times during that week. And by antagonistically hitting the other side, maybe on a different day, you're able to come back that next day and really hit it that much harder and be that much more effective. So that's why it's so important that we, split it up that way.
Yeah. And what I think also it allows you to have bigger compound movements, right? Like we do a little bit of everything, right? We do compound movements like your deadlifts, your squats, you know, like pull-ups, like, you know, that hit multiple muscle groups at the same time. But we also do, you know, very concentrated muscle groups too, like your concentration bicep curls or something like that.
Yep.
So we mix in a little bit of all those things, but it allows you to be training very regularly without having an overexertion, I guess, of some muscles, giving them a break, but you're still active working other muscles on the next functional day.
Correct, right. And that's kind of another point, is that the reason why we structure the workouts to have the key movement in the very beginning is that if all else fails, you're able to get those solid sets in of that big compound movement that's working a lot of muscle all at once. And then as you progress through the rest of the workout, even though fatigue is settling in, the movements are going to be less taxing overall to some degree, not always, but they'll allow you to fully stress those muscles in a way that will, you know, finish the workout where you're not feeling burnt out and you're like, oh my God, all I did was just big squats the whole time. Because that's also not enjoyable. You don't want to do things that are obviously fun and different.
Yeah, I think it was one of the things that surprised us a little bit, even though obviously you had planned to do this way, the functional movement. We'd always planned that was the way the Level Up workout was going to work out. But I think we were even surprised that, you know, members can come 5-6 days a week and still get adequate amount of rest, because they're still resting the muscles that they exerted on, say, day one. Say it's a Monday, you're not maybe hitting them again until Wednesday or Thursday. You're hitting different muscles in between. So you can still get the rest of those muscles and still be coming to train, you know, in between.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back in time a little bit. When we first even built the place, it was just supposed to be a total body workout every single day. It's like, hey guys, like, we're trying to do something new. Strength training is now starting to become very mainstream, and come get a solid workout every day. Every day's total body. You're going to do some upper body, lower body. And what we learned is that people were coming every single day, and they were getting burnt out, because it's like, dude, I'm hitting legs 5 days. I'm doing arms 5 days. I can't do this. And people are like, you need to kind of adjust this. And we had enough of our like good members tell me that I'm like, okay, we have to structure this where you can come every single day, and you're not gonna get burnt out. You're gonna be able to recover to some degree. Some days are harder than others.
You still need a rest day here or there.
If you're new, it's gonna be tough every day for the first 2 weeks, just so you know. But yeah, I think that's very important. So
yeah, I think it's a great adjustment, you know, to be able to take the feedback from our members, tweak the programming a little bit to make it even more effective. That was really good. So that was the number one, you know, why is the functional movement. I think a lot of the world of strength training is kind of moving in that direction too, is doing much more of the functional movement than the split, the typical bro split or the body part split. The second one I think was, you know, at Level Up, those of us who go to Level Up know we have our key movement broken into levels 1 through 5 typically, that go from relatively easier to relatively harder modalities of the same movement. You know, I think it's very easy for most people to understand that if you're relatively new, you're probably starting at an easier level, but there's other reasons why we have it split into multiple levels. You want to give a little bit of insight into that?
Oh yeah, totally. So if you're there's different ways to look at it. So if you're new, obviously you want to stick with the lighter levels. If you're coming back from an injury, you may want to progress down to an easier level. So we have a lot of people, the barbell work is usually higher level up. If you're doing like a back squat, that'll be probably a level 3 or 4. Level 1 or 2 is usually a lot simpler. It also is a much more stable movement a lot of the time. So if you're looking to really just progress in your strength and you haven't seen any gains recently, try progressing down to like a level 1 or 2. An example would be something like a military press. Military press, you're standing and you have to use a lot of core muscles to stabilize. Well, it is hard to progress in your strength upward if you're starting to hit a plateau, if your core isn't able to hold on to it. So by going down to a seated dumbbell press, you could fully work your shoulders, make those stronger overall to help your core. And a lot of people, I think, fail to do that. I don't know if it's because of ego. I don't know if it's because they maybe don't know that that's actually the move to do, but that will be very beneficial if you are stuck somewhere and like, hey, I'm going to go down, I'm going to make the movement easier, but I'm going to go way up in weight. I'm going to go 10, 15 pounds heavier than I'm used to going, and I'm going to really try to struggle through these 4 to 5 sets.
Yeah, I think it's an important point because, you know, those of us that are more experienced and have been in Level Up since the beginning, you know, there's almost like a badge of honor of, you know, starting with a level 4, level 5 every single time when you're doing any movement. But I've noticed, and based on your guidance usually, you know, when I back it down a little bit, that I find my form improves tremendously. Like you were talking about squats before, you and I were squatting yesterday, and you know, I was going very, very heavy, but I wasn't getting the depth that was necessary. So you purposely took the weight down for me and said, let's get really low, you know, on this next squat, and it works, right? And you know, that's not even backing down a level, that's just backing down weight. But you know, doing the same thing with levels when you really need to kind of reset make sure your form is really locked in. I think it's so important. You mentioned coming back from injury. That's definitely one that you want to do. Or if you've really just taxed your body over time and you need to just deload a little bit, right? And have a little bit of a break. You still want to come to the gym. You still want to stay disciplined. You still want to be active, but maybe you need a little break for your body. Your body's telling you like time to take it down a notch for a second. That's another way to really do it nicely, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, deloading is so important. Going, and even one other one is, you have people who are experienced in the gym. They're used to doing maybe the same workout routine. Maybe they're really good at bench press, at deadlifts or something. And that's kind of been their box they've stayed in for the last maybe 6 or 7 years or however long. And then they come in here and like, oh, I've never done a kettlebell swing before. I've never done a barbell row before. I mean, who knows, whatever it is. So, but they've done plenty of deadlifts and bench press or whatever the case. So they come in, they're a master at that, but then they have no idea like how to squat. They have no idea how to actually press overhead. Yeah. So it gives us the opportunity to say, hey, let's regress a little bit. Let's start at the beginning. Let's get the movement pattern right. And then we can progress from there. And because you're already strong in other places, you're going to be able to develop this very quickly as well. Yeah. So it's motivating to them to say, hey, I'm going to try some different stuff. And now again, back to the first question, I'm training my body as a whole. Yeah, I love that. I think the different levels is certainly unique to us, I think. It's not that there aren't other people who can do this, but, it's something that we've made a real big core part of our workout is having the ability to have different levels for all different kind of reasons and to make sure that, no matter what, there's something for you, right? That it's a very inclusive way of, a lot of people who come to us have never strength trained before. Mm-hmm. This is their first resistance training program. And it's a very great way to bring new people in the door and then to have them feel good about their progressions, but also to have a break built in whenever you need a break, no matter how experienced that you are. Oh, absolutely. And that's what I love most is like seeing somebody who they've really never done anything before. And then we're teaching them everything. And then like 6 months to a year later, they look like they've been doing it for 20 years. Yeah. And like that to me is like, as a trainer, like something where I just geek out on. And I'm like, I'm so happy that, we are able to help you in that way. The one that always resonates most with me is on deadlifts because deadlifts as a compound movement are extraordinarily good for you. But it is something that many people struggle with the form on, especially as you get to those higher levels. And I remember before we opened Level Up, and you and I and one of our friends were deadlifting, and I was having real problems with the form on a barbell. Mm-hmm. And you said no, you brought out a hex bar for me and said, try this, do it this way, which naturally puts you in a little bit easier form to keep your back straight, get a little more legs into it. I had never used a hex bar before, which at Level Up today would be like a level 2 deadlift. And it was so transformational for me to be able to understand and protect my back and learn better form. And it took me a long time of using the hex bar before I felt comfortable even going back to the barbell. But it was such a positive thing for me to be able to get over the hurdle that I was having with form in a better way, and then learn how to progress to higher levels over time. So I have a personal view on this, so it's a tremendous thing. I love that we do at Level Up. Yeah, no, I love that you referenced that, man. That's exactly my point. Is that sometimes you have to go down in order to go up, and I don't know if people again know to do that or if it's an ego thing, but. Again, if you're at a plateau, it's been a while since you've maybe seen any gains. Maybe try regressing down and playing around with different different movements of that pattern you're trying to do, and see if you get any better. So just food for thought. I love it. Cool. I love it. Moving on, the next one is why you need to be fully dialed in, locked in, or really focused on the exercise you're currently doing. So you and I are working out, and I'm doing a set. I should not be looking at you, talking to you. I should be looking at the floor, focusing on my breathing, looking at myself in the mirror, whatever I need to do to make sure I am so much focusing on the weight that nothing else matters. Yeah, this is an interesting one because it sounds so obvious, right? Like when you're lifting, just pay attention to what you're doing, right? Right. But we see it all the time, and I do it, you do it. Like we all, every once in a while, slip a little bit. We're kind of like sort of paying attention to what we're doing. We're moving the weight around, but we're not fully locked in. We're not fully immersed in the lift, which, look, we're moving weight around, right? We're moving heavy things around, which means that if you're not fully intentional with what you're doing, there's risk of injury. There's risk of, just doing something stupid, essentially you could, and really injury is the thing you worry most about. And I mean, we see it all the time, right? Like, look, you're in the gym, you're with your friends, you're enjoying your time. And of course, talking is part of that, socializing is part of that. But if you're doing it in the middle of a lift, there's like real
danger. But also, even if there's not danger, you may not be locked in on your form. You may not be hitting the muscles right either. Right. So that's something that I think we definitely see from time to time, is the going through the motions of a workout or socializing a little bit and not being fully intentional on a set.
Yeah, which is fine. We encourage obviously we want you to be social, but when you're getting into your set, whatever you're doing, you get there, you almost want to have the same approach you would do any other exercise. Any big power lifter, bodybuilder will tell you that when you're doing an exercise, your setup should almost always be the same, whether you're doing a big rep set or a 1 rep max. For me, example, my setup for a squat, I get myself even on the bar with my hands first. I, take a couple of deep breaths, get my shoulders set. It takes, a good 30, 45 seconds for me to fully get set before I even start my first rep. So I'm getting under the bar, take a deep breath to take the bar off the rack, take steps back, set my feet, make sure I'm really set. Take a few more deep breaths. When I'm ready, take a big deep breath in. Hold that breath all the way down to the bottom of the rep. Come up, let the breath out. That is all 1 rep, and that's everything that I am thinking about and focusing on. So there is no other distractions.
Yeah, and that's that takes practice, right? That's not something that, you've been lifting for a long time and you have that as part of your normal routine. But so that means when you're lifting, you're fully locked in on exactly what you have to do, preparing your body for it, knowing exactly the motions you're going to go through, so that it's a very safe lift and that you're getting the optimal muscle activation when you're doing it. And it's hard because each exercise has its specific thing that you need to be doing. So, when it's 5:30, 6:30 in the morning, you just rolled out of bed, you're hitting the gym, to be fully intentional on a lift sometimes is not easy to do, but it's so important. And, I think it's one of those little things that makes a huge difference over time to your improvement, your gains, if you're really focused on what you're doing.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you might be able to actually lift more weight than you ever thought you could, because you're so focused on pulling the weight and working on it that you almost have no choice but to make gains because you're doing that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you were saying, they will set up for a set and it's not consistent. They are, they're distracted, they're talking, and again, it's fine.
We all want to have fun too.
Of course,
have
fun. I'm just saying, when you're about to start a set, there should be what would you say how much actual work time would be done in a workout? About maybe 5 total minutes of actual, you're moving actual weight and you're exhausted. The rest of the time is rest and recovering and getting ready for your next set and setting up.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's probably a little more. But if you think about it during key movement, right? If we're doing an average of 15 minutes of a key movement, you're definitely moving weight a lot less than half of that time, right? Probably a third of that time between switching off with your partners and resting and setting up the weight and all of that, right?
Well, let's put it this way. If you're doing 5 sets, each set takes you about 45 seconds to a minute. Right. Say 5 to 10 reps if you're really intentional and focusing on that. Right. So that's at least 5 minutes of work there. Yeah. And again, that's just 5 minutes of just straight work. So again, that's, if you think about it like that, that's all you got. So it's so important that during that 5 minutes, you are stressing those muscles and you are getting low. Or you are pressing as much as you can. You're staying locked in on your form.
And that's one of the things I think when we were talking about plateaus before, and there are plateaus that happen for a number of reasons. Your body just naturally hits plateaus that you have to get through too. But sometimes plateaus happen because if you're not intentional, you may not be hitting the muscle and activating the muscle exactly the way that you should, because you're not fully focused on it. And, maybe you're not challenging yourself with weight enough because you're not really thinking about it so much. And so those lead to plateaus, and that can lead to frustration. It can lead to boredom. And, so I think getting locked in on your workout or on your lift and knowing exactly what you're trying to do and exactly how it feels to the muscle that you're working, knowing when you're getting when it's too easy or too hard, all of those things lead to better activation of your muscles over time and a lot safer lift.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I think you nailed it on the head right there. It just
sweet.
And just and then if you're doing that day in and day out, or even just start with 1 or 2 sets. If you've never really thought about it before, start with a set or 2 where you're I'm just going to give it all I got. I don't know if it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the big bodybuilders, used to say I will come in and do just one big set and work as hard as I can on that one set, and they'll be way more effective than some guy in here doing an hour workout just on his own sometimes.
It's really true. There's
some truth to that.
The intentionality of lifting is such an important thing, I think, just because I think of it first from the safety perspective, because when you're moving heavy things, you want to make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to put you in a compromised position, because anytime you have a real injury, then it really sets you back, not just your health already, but your ability to then work out certainly gets set back. But in order to really see muscle gain over time, which I think we all really want, that's why we're at Level Up, you really have to be so intentional to hit the muscle, challenge yourself with weights. There are times where I'm not paying full attention to what I'm doing, and maybe we're supposed to be doing like 6 to 8 reps, and I ended up choosing a weight because I wasn't thinking, where I could probably do like 20 reps. And then it's like, well, that was obviously
that was a wasted set.
Yeah, it was just a wasted set.
Yeah, I do that too. I do the exact same thing. I'll do a set and I'm like, man, you could have done way more. I feel like there are those sets that happen sometimes.
And you're like, what was I thinking, right? Because I wasn't thinking at that moment, right?
Exactly. And it's like, well, I'm only here for 45 minutes. I need to make this happen, especially if you're busy and you've got kids, a job, everything else. So you've got to be intentional.
Yeah, as Mike Israetel says, we're not made of time. Right?
We're not made of time. I wish we were. The other thing, one more thing on that I just remembered that I was going to say was, if you're not sure, ask the trainer. So whether you're a member at our gym or you're somewhere else, you're out of state, whatever, you're working with somebody, like you're not sure if you're hitting the right muscles, like ask the coach, ask the trainer, where should I be feeling this? Is there a way to make this more effective? I don't know if I'm really getting this. Like don't be shameless with that. Just like ask lots of questions, really try to make sure that you're understanding so that you can get the most out of it. Fair
point. Because if you think about it, when our coaches are demoing the entire workout, they're not just doing the key movement, they're doing all of the stations too. So there's a lot of, there could be 8 to 20 exercises that are being demoed, and the coach can't spend that whole 5 minutes explaining exactly which muscles are going to be hit, with each movement. So it's important that if it's not obvious and you really want to know, like, what should I be feeling? What should my cue be? How should I feel this in my body? Just ask, and we'll definitely tell you. Like, there are certain movements that if you do them right, you'll feel them exactly where they're supposed to be. But if you do them a little bit wrong, you're going to feel it somewhere completely different, and you don't want that to happen.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, that's it right there. So
all right,
cool.
Number four.
Why the mobility before class and priming the body is so important. And notice they say the warm up before class, not even so much the stretch after class. Okay. Yes, stretching after can be beneficial. It can help you, but the real place you want to focus on is your warm up, because obviously you're about to lift all this weight. You're about to do these crazy movements. If you're just getting out of bed, your joints are stiff, your blood isn't flowing. It's so important that you're getting there on time to do some type of warm up. Whether you're getting there on time or doing it on your own, I don't care, as long as you're primed.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that your muscles and your joints aren't ready to just move heavy things just when you show up in the door, right? You need to have some flexibility, some mobility, some blood flow, already going before you start to move things, right? And then we, in addition to that mobility stretch that we have beforehand, the key movement always starts with warm-up sets too, right? For the same reason, go with a lightweight or a low level, just to prime the muscles that are going to be used so that you don't put yourself at risk of injury. And now, we know a tremendous number of our members are always running to class. They're busy people, they have jobs, they have lives, they have kids, they have things going on, and trying to get to the gym like right on time. They try their best, and sometimes you can't do that. But we still want you to stretch, whether you do it with everybody or not. It's so important to getting ready for the lift, right?
Absolutely. And not only that, but the type of stretching you're doing. So you notice, guys, that we always do dynamic warm-ups, dynamic stretching. If you're at a gym that's not doing that for a warm-up, you should probably talk to the trainer, say, hey, why don't we do more dynamic stretching, and then let me know what they say. But you like moving, doing the movement with just your body weight, lubricating the joints, basically like getting the muscle ready to squeeze and contract. Because if you're doing static stretching, whereas holding a stretch for 10 to 20 seconds or however long, what you're doing is you're actually elongating the muscle. So if you don't know this, when you stretch, static stretching like that, the muscle elongates. And what you're trying to do when you're working out is you're trying to actually squeeze that muscle. You want that muscle to actually tighten up and contract. Yeah. So when you elongate it, you're already kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage, because now that muscle has to get out from that elongated place to now try to contract. It's going to be a lot harder to do so. So you're not going to be as effective those first few sets until your body is now used to doing that movement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And of course, as expected, the trainer, when they're doing their dynamic stretch, it's for the muscles that we're using the most that day, right? So you will see some things like when we start in child's pose, whatever, you're just kind of like getting ready to stretch. But if we're going to be working the shoulders a lot that day, you're going to see a lot of dynamic movements around the shoulders. If we're going to be working a lot of the legs that day, if we're going to do a squat day, you're going to see a lot more of the legs in that dynamic stretch. Like it's purposeful for what's about to come.
Right. And what do I mean by dynamic stretching? I'm saying these things. It's like you're moving, you're going into a stretch, you're only holding it for maybe a second or two before you kind of bounce into like another stretch or into another movement pattern.
Right.
So you're only holding it for a second or two to get that muscle a little bit of a stretch, and then you squeeze it to get back to your position, and then do it on the other side or do it whatever.
Yeah, like a static stretch would be something you just stick into and hold, where dynamic is movement involved, like the extension and contraction of a muscle, right?
Right. So we just want to land that home that's very important, and that if you have been training for a while, you probably already know this, but if you're brand new or you're getting into it, that is how you should be warming up. And then for your cool down stretching, that's when you want to do the longer static stretching.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's the way that we do it at Level Up is we start with the demo, right? So we're going to show you all of the things that you're going to do with proper form first. Then we do that dynamic stretch, get you ready and primed for that. Then the key movement, which is really focused on that compound movement, and then the reinforcing stations that come behind it, and then that static stretch at the end. It's a very particularly laid out format for that optimal workout, right?
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. That's how we designed it, where it's like, hey, like everything revolves around these, again, falls around the movement pattern. If you're doing a lunge, all the warm-ups are going to revolve around lunging. The key movements, then lunging, and then all those other accessory lifts are some deviation of that or some deviation of that movement pattern. So, and it's very, very thought out that way. And we take a lot of time and effort to make sure that like these workouts are structured in that way, to make sure that you're not doing some asinine thing on a day where you should be doing like the one movement that's going to benefit you.
Right. So, that's perfect. I think we do. I don't think people necessarily question the dynamic stretch before, the mobility before, but it may not be intuitive why. We thought it was important for people to understand the why. It's not just, stretching for stretching's sake, before a workout.
Yeah. No, just so you guys know.
One of the things, number 5, I think is an interesting one, because not many people ask us this, or maybe some people do, but we wish they would.
Yeah.
Which is, why do we recommend lifting shoes or flat bottom shoes, or however you want to call it, for our type of workout?
Yeah. It's almost something I wish we could do in our like onboarding when we bring somebody on. It's just one of the questions like, do you have flat shoes? And they'd be like, what are you talking about? What do we mean by that is like, when you're lifting, if you're wearing footwear that has a lot of cushion to it, if you're wearing a running shoe when you're trying to do a squat or something, or a lunge, for example, it's so important to be balanced and stable. We've emphasized that a lot at Level Up, that it's not so much doing things unstable, to try to make it harder. Like that sometimes is counterintuitive. You actually want to really stabilize yourself and then try to go as heavy as you can in that movement. Right. An example would be a Bulgarian split squat. A lot of people like to work on their balance, try to just hold it there. But I've started doing it where I hold one heavy dumbbell and I hold onto the wall. And I do it that way, so I'm just crushing that one side. I don't care that my balance is off, but at least I'm able to move along that line of pull, and I'm able to get the most out of that set.
Yeah.
But if I got a squishy shoe on, my foot's going to be moving around. I'm not able to get into that line as easily. I'm going to be focusing more on my balance. Whereas if I've got that flat shoe, I could dig my toes into the ground, my heel's flat, and I feel a lot more stable.
Yeah, I think this is the difference between running and lifting, right? So like if you're running, the impact on your joints is a really big deal. It's the reason why so many running shoes are so cushiony. Like if you think about, Hoka's or On's or even the most cushiony Nike and Adidas shoes, they're there to kind of absorb the impact of the stride and then to propel you forward, on the next stride. It's purposeful, like trampoline type of effect. If you're lifting weights, you don't want to be on a trampoline, right? If you're lifting weights, you want stability. You want to be able to move your ankles around a little bit, but you also want firm foundation, like you said, almost to grip your feet into the ground, especially when you're doing lower body work. If you're doing squats, deadlifts, you want to be firm foundation. And a lot of our members do wear running shoes to the gym, and okay, but it's just not optimal for that. It is a bit riskier, I think, as you start to bear heavier loads. If your feet are moving wobbly around that cushion, while you're trying to lift weights, it introduces the risk of injury. I would almost rather you took those shoes off and did it in your socks at that point.
It's safer at that point. Yeah. I mean, if you're really lifting a lot of weight, you've got like a Hoka on or a really thick like Brooks shoe, that thing is, you almost could roll your ankle if you're really unstable and you're kind of sliding around quite a bit. I've seen some people where it gets a little close And I just want to tell them, but again, we're not trying to make you guys break your bank and have to go buy all these different shoes. But if you don't have like a flat pair, and we could give some recommendations. And
you don't have to spend a lot of money on them. They're usually not very expensive either. Sometimes they're often cheaper than the best running shoes out there that can cost a whole lot of money.
Yep.
And I get it for people who do a little bit. If you do cardio, you do your strength training at Level Up. You don't want to have like like I have dozens of pairs of shoes. Most people don't want to do that. But I think it's important to have like a go-to pair of lifting shoes. And by the way, they'll last you a lot longer than any pair of running shoes that burn out in a few months of wearing them. Your lifting shoes typically won't like that. But it's so important, I think, just to have that firm foundation on anything where you're bearing weight, especially with your lower body, or like you said, Bulgarian split squats, anything that requires some balance to it. For sure, you want to be able to have like that firm foundation underneath you. It's so important.
Yeah, and then one more thing on that. If you're looking up lifting shoes, if you look up lifters, that will give you squat specific lifting shoes. I don't know if they still make those or sell those. I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah.
The heel is naturally raised because that will give you more ankle flexibility and makes the squat a little bit better. That is not what we're talking about for our workouts. Now, again, that's very specific. If you want to do squats, squat specifically, you don't deadlift in those things either.
Plus, we already have the ability to put your heels elevated if you want to.
Right. It's very, very specific for that. No, we're talking like cross training. Another name for them is called zero drop, meaning there's no space between your heel and the floor. It's really just like whatever the shoe is, and then you're on the ground.
And there's tons of good ones out there, and they don't have to be like all perfect. You just want them to be functional and to give you a good, stable foundation for what you're doing for your lifts. It's a little bit of a pet peeve of ours when I see some people doing really heavy lifts with very foamy shoes, and you can see as they go down into their squat, you can see the shakiness of the feet. It always makes me a little nervous for them, but I just think it's an important thing. Like you're already investing so much in your gym membership and in your time. Have like a good pair of lifting shoes. They don't cost a lot of money typically to have, right?
Well, and going back to our third question, hey, it's going to help you be more intentional. If your feet are rooted through the floor, I wish I could put my feet into the ground. Honestly, if there was a way to just stick my feet in there and I'm just like a tree root.
That's important. You're right, because if you're being really intentional, like say we're doing back squats, right, with a barbell on your back, and you really want to focus in on your form, and your feet are moving around, and all you're thinking about is your ankles.
Oh gosh!
At that moment.
Oh gosh! Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's not intentional anymore, right? Yeah. So I think it's a good investment. It's where we're not endorsing it. We don't get paid by anybody. We don't make our own shoes, but we're just saying, if you're really invested in what you're doing with strength training, there's not that many things you have to buy in order to. It's not like skiing where you have to buy hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of stuff. Just one pair of decent lifting shoes will get you there.
Exactly. Yeah. Very simple. So cool. Love it. Dude, that was great, man. I think we covered like quite a few things.
Should we tee up one more?
Absolutely. So I think we're going to tee up next episode, right?
Let's tee up the next episode. Yeah. Can we get asked? This is probably the most asked question that we've gotten recently.
Is why are we fans of creatine?
Yeah. Why are we fans of creatine as opposed to anything else? And I think we should get into this in the next episode. We're going to get into not just why we like creatine, but why it's really the only supplement that we think has enough robust data and science behind to actually say is good and has very limited side effects to it. And so I think and we'll get into not just the science of it. What does the data say? Maybe we'll try to get into a little bit of like, how does it work in your body? What does creatine actually do? There's a lot of misinformation about creatine that came from many years ago when creatine was mixed with other weight loss drugs. And it was really the weight loss drugs that were the problem back then, the fen type drugs, not the creatine itself. There's a lot of misinformation about creatine, but there's also a ton of really good data and science behind it now that we can point to. So you and I think, have become fans of it because of the data, because of the science behind it. And let's explain it next time.
Yeah, it's the most peer-reviewed supplement out there right now. It's I think over 400 or 500 peer-reviewed studies have been done on just creatine monohydrate alone. Not even like the other forms. So we're going to really dive into that. I'm really excited because again, there's been a lot of questions about that, and again, we're going to get the most up-to-date studies that we can possibly find, the most up-to-date information. So we're giving you guys like the tip of the spear, and y'all know exactly what's going on with that.
Yeah, that's going to be on the next one.
Totally. And then if you guys have any other questions that you have or anything you've thought about and you want to submit them to us, you guys can go to our Instagram page, Level Up Fit FLA, or Level Up Fit Fla, however you want to say it. That's how I say it, because the guy that has the Level Up Fitness handle won't sell it to me. Anyways, but you guys can go there, type us, send us a message. You can go on our website, send us an email. If you're in the studio, you can send it, tell us directly.
Yeah, we want to hear more from you guys, and definitely we get asked about creatine every single day, so it's definitely one we're going to tackle next time.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. See you next time.
See ya.